Hello, Richard Amoroso here from the Philadelphia Orchestra, and it is Christmas time and I'm here at my home. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you. So today we're going to talk about playing with a silky smooth sound. And what does that mean? Playing with a good sound is very difficult, and it mostly comes down to one thing, and that's bow control. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Before we start, please hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. So first, let's just talk about what makes a good sound when we use the bow. And there are three variables that we need to consider, and they all work together. And that's the speed of the bow, the weight of the bow, and the point of contact. All three are vital in making a good sound. So let's just start with the point of contact. And that's just putting the bow about 2/3 of the way from the bridge to the fingerboard, maybe a little bit past the halfway point for first position, okay? Just to make that really sort of perfect contact point, okay? Then the weight of the bow is definitely changing because at the frog, it's a certain amount of weight given the heaviness of the frog versus the tip, okay? So let's just put sort of the weight of the bow given the frog without really adding any weight. And then we're going to move the bow at that point of contact with the weight of the bow. And you can see I'm making sort of an acceptable sound, okay? However, to move that bow very steadily takes a lot of practice. And then to add to that, as we move the bow away from the frog to the middle, we actually have to add some weight. And when we get to the tip, we're definitely adding a certain amount of weight. We're leaning on the tip of the bow, lifting our shoulder ever so slightly. And then conversely, when we go from the tip to the middle to the frog, we're letting the bow sort of levitate with our arm levitating to release that weight so as not to sort of wedge in and get sort of an ugly sound. So let's just reestablish those three things, okay? The point of contact, the weight of the bow, and sort of the speed, okay? However, we really need to stay poised before we start and feel very balanced, okay? If we in any way sort of haphazardly get started, like we talked about in the previous video in terms of preparation, you really are getting off to a bad start at creating that good sound. So again, poise, point of contact, the weight of the bow, and then let's move the bow. So let's just start with a simple exercise, and that is putting the bow sort of in the middle, again on the point of contact, with a certain amount of weight, and all we're going to do is move it steadily from the middle to the tip. And then back to the middle. And see how very still and how very steadily we can keep that speed going. Just doing this takes a certain amount of practice in terms of keeping that speed consistent and keeping the weights consistent. You can see it's a very just smooth motion, keeping the violin still. Just moving the bow in that small quarter, steadily back and forth, takes a certain amount of practice. Okay, then if you want to go to the frog, start in the middle, and again, take the weight away and go back to the middle. This is a lot more difficult. Again, it takes a certain amount of practice. Take weight away, add a certain amount of weight, all while moving the bow at a very regular speed, okay? One little extra added tip is to keep the bow slightly tilted away from you and keep it sort of on the edge. It's easier to control and it feels a little bit more spongy if it's sort of on its tilt, okay? As opposed to having it straight up and down. Especially when you're going to the frog. And as you can see, I'm moving it extremely slow around the corner at the frog. This takes a lot of practice. What also takes practice is going from the middle to the tip and adding that weight and keeping the weight on the bow. The best thing to do is just practice those long tone scales at a very regular sort of tempo. Put a metronome on, maybe 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 2, 3, 4, all while staying very poised, very still, and moving the bow at a very consistent, regular speed. And feel sort of the adding and sort of decreasing of weight. Less weight to more weight. Take the weight away, add the weight. Take the weight away. All while really sort of listening very, very carefully to sort of the tone that you're making. You might even want to record yourself or videotape yourself to see what you're doing. One additional element is the straightness of the bow. I talked about that in a previous video, and I'll put that in the description about keeping that bow straight relative to the bridge, because that really does help keep the tone consistent and keep that sounding point consistent. If the bow slides at all, you're definitely going to have some inconsistencies with your tone. So again, just in review, speed, weight, point of contact, making sure you can maintain those. And again, they're different in all parts of the bow. Give that a try, practice your long tone scales, and let me know how it goes. Thank you so much for watching, and please hit that subscribe button. We'll see you soon.